for our budget hearing we were going to talk to our land records and taxation services departments. And that includes the county clerk, the county treasurer, the register of deeds, the appraiser, and IT for their support in this work. I thought this would be maybe a good place to start because there are no supplemental requests for any of the departments in this area. Would be to start with an update on the tax system. And I don't know between Jim and Jamie or others if you just want to kind of give a brief update on the tax system to the commission.
Sure. I probably know more about what's going on right now with it, but we have started on the new tax system with Tyler Technologies. We are currently working on the personal property piece. That one has to come first because we're going to end up with a consolidated system. The system that the appraiser uses is now for their appraisal. The tax package that we have purchased becomes part of that. They're going to work together. So right now we have all of our personal property in our old Aumentum system. So we're working on getting that moved over and getting the personal property part set up. We've also had a meeting on our specials. We do amortized specials, which Tyler has a system working for Johnson County, but they don't do amortized specials. So we're a little different than them. So we're working on getting that done. And in September, we're going to start working on what we call the tax collections piece of it, which will be creating the tax bills and being able to get the money for the taxes and do the distribution. So we still look like we're on schedule. We're planning to be live, hopefully no later than September 1st next year, so we can produce our tax bills, which we start that process at the 1st of October. Any questions on the tax system?
This is a massive endeavor for all of these departments and requires an extensive amount of work on very tight timeframes in order to make sure everything moves smoothly.
Yeah.
So, and just to remind the commissioners, the funds for this, we had some small amount, I think we had from some year-end savings that we put aside for this, but the account for the treasurer and the clerk, their tech funds also contributed to this as well.
Yeah, it is a lot of work, especially the data conversion, and we're going to have to run like dual systems for a period of time to make sure everything's calculating exactly the same, everything's working the same. So it is going to be a stress on those offices, probably springtime next year. And with tax systems, you have small windows to go live because you want to wait until after, if you can, till the second half payments are all done, and then implement your tax system before you have to produce the tax bills in the fall. So right now we're on schedule. We're going to make sure we stay on schedule.
Jamie, Kay, Paula, anybody have anything else they want to add to that update?
I think Jim covered it fine.
Another potential topic that I thought we could discuss this morning would be an update on elections. I know Jamie Scott is frantically working to get ready for advanced voting. I don't know, Jamie, if you feel like you can share some information about where you're at.
What part do you want me to go over?
Whatever you feel like.
I
just didn't know if there was anything in terms of.
If you can just talk on a couple of things, if that would help. This is Patrick.
We start voting in a couple of weeks. We lost 16 polling places, so we're down to 44 polling places. Letters and stuff went out for that. We've been able to replace a couple polling places at a cost larger than what we normally pay for a polling place. Probably the biggest news that happened yesterday is we have signed a lease on a place that we're going to try to run in-person advanced voting out of, and not in the courthouse, to encourage social distancing. As you know, the rotunda is not very big. So we've been working for a couple months on trying to find a space that has good parking accessibility to run advanced voting out of. And we're using, we received CARES Act money that is specifically through the Secretary of State's office for elections. And so we're able to use that CARES Act money for that. And we've been able to use that also for, the polling places are going to have plexiglass screens, PPE, hand sanitizer. We have ordered a stylus pen, and so for every voter that comes in to check in on the iPad and vote, they're going to get their own stylus and pen that they get to take with them as a souvenir of voting. But that way, we don't have shared styluses and pens. So we've done, the past couple months has been interesting as we prepare for this. We have 18,000, over 18,000 advanced applications right now. The most we have ever sent in a primary is 3,000. Just in case you were interested, 40% of that 18,000 are people who normally vote at a polling place. So, and about 30% of that are people who don't normally participate in a primary. So we not only see increased participation, to be honest, right now we don't know how many people are coming to the polling place. So for the places we couldn't replace and had to do some sort of consolidation, right now I feel comfortable with we can still accommodate those numbers. We hired extra staff to come in and help us put in those advanced applications. And we're working on some systems to help us prepare those, because preparing 18,000 envelopes and ballots will take some time. And then we have another project that we're working on that we had funded earlier this year, which is a ballot tracking system where voters are going to be able to go in. It should go live probably in the next couple of weeks. Voters will be able to track their ballot in the mail stream, and they'll be able to sign up for texts and emails so that they'll be able to know like your ballot's in your mailbox. And then when we receive it, they'll get a text or an email that says, clerk's office has your ballot. We put that in place before kind of the COVID stuff, but I think with all of the mail ballots, it was a really good investment that we've made because I think it will provide some confidence for people that have concerns about mail ballots. Is that kind of cover? We also have purchased some drop boxes that haven't arrived yet, and then we'll be putting some locations around town to increase ability to just drop off your ballot.
Amy, can you say those numbers again of the number of advanced mail-in ballots? And that seems huge. Can you just say those numbers again? This is Patrick.
So we have over 18,000 advanced applications right now. And of course, we sent out for both the primary and the general. So we have a few more. I think it's closer to 19,000 for the general, because some people don't want to participate in the primary. And 40% of that number are people who normally vote at the polling place. So we were able to run those statistics. So that tells us, first of all, that we were able to move some people out of the in-person voting into mail voting. And then about 30% of that number are people who have not participated in a primary. Either they're brand new voters or they're voters who just generally don't do a primary. So I think we'll also have increased turnout.
And what's the number that we use? Well, you said the number that we have advanced applications usually. What was that?
For a primary, the most we ever sent out is a little over 3,000. Now, general, we set a record in 2018. I think we mailed out about 13,000. So We've been doing quite a few things the past few years to encourage mail ballot in general. So it has had more of an significant impact on the primary.
Well, good job for your office for figuring out how to move and change. I really like that idea of tracking ballots. That's really cool stuff, man.
Yeah, we've run some tests and it works. So we probably closer to when we mail ballots on the 15th, we'll roll it out publicly.
Signed up for the mail-in ballot, can they bring that to you, or does it have to be mailed, or can you still advance vote, or what?
Well, you can drop it off at the drop box, or you can bring it to us, or you can mail it back. I guess that's the other thing I want to touch on is we started last year where we pay for the postage for ballots to get returned, so voters no longer have to put a stamp on there. And that was a change in our budget, but we were able to accommodate it. And then we made the decision with COVID. We also now pay for the postage to return the advance application. So at no point does the voter have to put a stamp on either of those things.
Jamie, I think you touched on the new location for advanced voting. This is completely new for this organization to really not have advanced voting in the courthouse. I know you've got I think the thought is that this is sort of a little bit of a pilot to see if voting at this location would be something that we would sustain past this 2020 election. Space needs for elections is a huge issue for us, and it's been a part of the master plan conversations. I don't know if there's more you want to say about that in terms of your need for a space and maybe this location versus other locations, or your thoughts on that.
Well, Sarah and I have had conversations as we've been doing this. We've been looking for a location for 2 months. I have learned renting commercial space in Lawrence is not as easy as it may sound. So we actually have a really good location. It's behind Texas Roadhouse on South Iowa. It used to be a Sears appliance store. We just signed the lease on that yesterday. It's a nice big space that will allow us to do social distancing for in-person, but also we'll be able to run our some of our boards with social distancing, and we'll be able to cut down on our training costs because we rent hotel ballrooms for training because we'll run some training out of there. Any of those downtown space needs studies, one of the first things it says is elections is somewhere else. And so one of the things Sarah and I have talked about is, this is a good trial run of do we continue with this space or another space on just moving elections into a different space, and moving elections into one space. So we operate right now out of the warehouse with part of our team and then part of our team's here, and it would combine both teams together. And then, a space like this, when we talk about space needs, could become a training space or a meeting space for the commission, or, if there's a community meeting that sustainability is having or something, this space has really good parking. So I think that there could be some long-term discussions about this could be where elections could go. One of the things that's a concern of mine is people are used to coming here to the courthouse to vote. It's iconic. This is where they've always come to vote. There's just no space here for us to social distance.
Yeah, that's really what I was thinking, Jamie. And I think it's, most of this team knows that I'm not a huge fan of lease space, but we've sort of had to venture into that recently just to really accommodate our space needs. If this works out, it's a great location. 23rd in Iowa, I don't know how easier it could be to find in terms of a location and the ability to have just some more wide open sort of space for a variety of county needs when it's not needed by the election office. Or if we're able to put in a small training room or like meeting room, not small, large, kind of large, so that we could accommodate that. I think it'd be really interesting. I think what I'm really interested to see is how Jamie feels about particularly that particular building and that location, because you invest a lot of money in like tenant finish into a lease space that really you don't have if you decide to change or go somewhere else. Or is it something like as a part of the master plan that we need to look for a more permanent home somewhere else that we could build or own to do that? You know, at the fairgrounds, perhaps. It's a possibility for 1242 Massachusetts Street. Parking's not great there. So it's just one of those things that is sort of occasionally bubbles up in conversations between Jamie and I in terms of our space needs. Questions on that?
Well, I would just chime in here to say, in my memory, this has been a conversation that's been rolling around for a long time, and the disadvantages of having storage kind of in a basement building out at the county fairgrounds, and you know, I hope we'll be able to really advance this conversation and make some real progress on it, because it does seem like that's the way we need to go. And Jamie's been patient, and but you know, with all the new COVID lessons we're learning and kind of what the future looks like, it seems like a good season to really start getting very serious about that kind of move. So.
Well, and if anybody's ever been here in a big election, voting in the rotunda already was not great for space in actually accessibility. We're really excited about this. Has accessible parking right at the front door, and it's just, you know, you go right in the front door versus trying to find a space down here to park, and you know, get into this building sometimes is not as easy. So we're kind of excited about the accessibility part of this.
And Jamie, you'll start publicizing this right away. It sounds like you just finished this lease, didn't you?
Yeah, we've been ready to publicize it for a while, but we finally finalized it yesterday. So, yeah, we're working on. We have a little postcard that we're going to send into every household, and then we just sent a thing to all the candidates to try to help us, not only with that, but with the polling place changes, because the polling place changes affect over 20,000 voters. And it gets interesting for us because it separates our staff, because we'll still have the staff that has to work with the voter database here. So there's some interesting challenges, but we'll figure it out. You know, as all departments over the past couple of months, we'll figure it out.
Does anybody else have any questions? Or I want to make sure the treasurer's office, appraiser's office, and register of deeds have an opportunity to share anything if they'd like. Okay, go ahead.
The one thing I wanted to touch on, Sarah, that we didn't, if we're talking long term, one of the things is personnel.
Yes.
It's not in this year's budget, but if we move elections, my staff, all of the election staff also does other roles outside of elections, that if we were to move elections, we would have to look at possibly hiring some personnel to cover those roles here in the courthouse.
Yeah, and that's been an issue that's, you know, Jamie's identified and that we've identified for a period of time. And I do just think we've talked about some interesting possibilities that if we were able to do that, Jim Lawson can talk to you about a lot of our concerns with document management. And we have a lot of needs in that area in this organization. And I think most of you probably know document management is one of those things that never rises to the top of the to-do list to be important, but we're kind of drowning in paper out at the fairgrounds, and so my hope would be is if we were able to expand the staffing for Jamie in a future year, that maybe we could also make some progress on that front.
Before we let you go, if there's no other questions, I just want to express tremendous gratitude for all three of these offices, clerk, and treasurer, and register of deeds, for how flexible you've been. You've had to make things work in very tough situations since March, and just can't say enough how much our community appreciates the work that you've done to make adjustments and make some really tough decisions where no answer was a good answer. So I just want to personally say how much I appreciate that.
Well, and for all these departments, we would not have been able to do what we did without you guys, your investment in our systems. So for the register of deeds, I know that all the online stuff that they've been able to invest in allowed them to work from home and still do functions. But for the treasurer and myself, that ERP system that we put in place allowed us to do AP and payroll and stuff from home. And we wouldn't, if we hadn't have invested in that system, I don't know how we would have done those things and still dealt with COVID.
Well, if there's nothing else, I also echo Commissioner Kelly's thanks. And this is, most of this is our team here in the courthouse with Jim just across the yard, and it's a real pleasure to work with this team. So thank you. And I guess while we move into kind of just an administrative conversation, if we're done with land records and taxation, I'm going to ask that we take a small break. I need to do a restart. I'm having some internet problems, so I'm going to do a quick restart. If we could give ourselves like 5 minutes, does that work? All right. Thank you, everyone.